UX in a Hurry was the first presentation that I made when I joined Galaxy in about 2008. The idea of the presentation is that we are going to cover the two basic factoids, or say the way that we are evaluating any user experience or any UI when it comes to two core principles or rule of thumb, as they say, is heuristic evaluation and Gestalt's theory, the cognitive and psychological theory parts that cover. So we are just going to look into that how UX matters and what sort of impacts it overall makes on everything that is related to the world. Some of you may already have been through this presentation a couple of years ago, but let's see that if we can still hold your interest. So UX in a hurry. So the first part is that we are all designers. Anybody who can look at a particular design, they will say, they will have some sort of opinion. So every time there is a design, so the process always people talk about is that you need to empathize with the people who are going to be the end users. We need to define the requirements and what exactly the users want that we are empathizing with. Then we do the ideation, we bounce ideas, we do brainstorming, we figure out that how those definitions can be converted into practical solutions. And then that solution turns to prototype that we in turn test. And that is where every person should have the capacity to evaluate any user interface which is provided to them with the basic tools that God has gifted us, such as common sense. Um, Always remember that the user experience is a combination of technology, because what is feasible, what's not, the business goals that what the business want to achieve, and the design part. The one question that always comes to mind is that the art and design, that combination, that you can say I am an artist and then you can say I am a designer. There is a difference between the two. When you say you are an artist, means that you believe in the expression that comes from the personal end, and when you are a designer, you are solving a problem. The art is the individual expression of the artist, whereas design is meant for a specific purpose. A design is supposed to solve a problem. So when you are calling yourself a designer, that means that you are there to provide a solution. So when you have a design that, with the help of technology, solves a business problem, that is where you get the user experience designer's tag with you. You cannot have just two factors and imagine that the UX is complete there. It has to match all three parts, where the user advocacy, testing, research, stories, validity, reliability all comes together, when the users go on and drive the solution for you. If you do a quick Google search on the Wikipedia page, there is always going to be this big list about what sort of documentation and the research methods are available, and how to use it. And even though these individual studies or parts we never get to use in a single project, well, practically speaking, um, you have products and projects that overlap between these ideations. And with that, it is easy for um, us to just assume that we will take a few bits and pieces here and there, and we just come convert the whole design. And the process in itself is connected to one another. When I say that here are the methods of doing the research, it doesn't mean that the one does not have any impact on the other. There is always going to be some sort of correlation between the methods that you're using, and while the exact output is coming across, the documentation makes sense, and they connect and they link to the conversation when it happens. So let us go back to January 95, 1st of January. I think that is the date which is written on that article. On that day, Jakob Nilsson, the how would I put it? I think he is the godfather of UX, if I want to put it like that. And Nelson Norman, along with him, they have this group called Nelson Norman Group, and Dan Norman is the other guy, and Jakob Nielsen is the first person. So they together have that NN group, and everything they do and say goes with the UX definition and design. So these are the first people to have UX architect as their title on their business. I think it was Dan Norman who was with Apple at that time. And calling myself an UX architect, it just pays an homage and goes to the fact that we got the direction from these fellas. So on 1st January 1995, Jakob Nielsen published an article that was called 10 Usability Heuristics for User Interface Design. And because of that date, it is relevant today. I mean, that says a lot about the theory part of UX. Any career in user experience design, it always have far and outreaching impacts. Anything that you learn in user experience design is not going to be outdated as soon as the technology passes through. In 95, people were coding COBOL, people were working on um, Perl. I think there are still places where these technologies may be relevant, but technologies such as Fortran or Pascal, they paved way for the modern tools that we use these days. 95 was the time when Windows 3.1 was the core operating system. Most of the computers was still running the disk operating system, or DOS as it was called. Unix was another favorite, and Mac OS was coming up with the interactions and all. So even then, when the user interface design was coming up, and these guidelines that were recommended by Jakob Nielsen were relevant. And even though the screens have changed, the displays have converted, we have moved away from the desktop computers to cloud computing, to voice based interactions, to mobiles, to watches, and so on, to the virtual reality and augmented reality interfaces. They still have that connect that actually makes them relevant for the purpose of it. So the 10 usability heuristics are: visibility of the system status, match between the system and the real world, user control and freedom, consistency and standards, error prevention, recognition rather than recall, flexibility and efficiency of use, the aesthetic and minimalistic design, and help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. They are straight up common sense terms which should be followed in any design that you are preparing. Any user interface that you guys are coming up with, it's easy. Whenever you design something, just check whether it is passing through all the parameters which are provided here. As a rule of thumb, this can help. We just recently concluded a major project for a major financial firm, and they wanted a redesign. They do not want to convert everything that was there. All the services had to be kept intact, and the data, they said the data is fine, it is just that the data, the actions that we're coming up with, there are features that we have on the application, and people are not able to find it. So we just need to figure out a way that the best approaches that we can get here, so that people are able to access everything that we have to offer. And at that time, heuristic evaluation was the only thing that could uh, we could provide, or we use that method to come up with the end solution. There is a case study about that is available in UX Folio if you guys are interested in having a go at it. Um, and finally comes the help and documentation part. So Nelson said that I originally developed the heuristics in collaboration with Rolf Mulk in 1990. Mulk and Nelson, 1990, Rolf and Nelson 90. So that was even before the date which I said. The published article was in 1995 as the core components, but the design heuristics was first published in even 5 years before when it was factored in. Don Norman, have the NN Group's other member, as I already mentioned, that he was the other guy. With him, he formed the Nelson Norman Group. So when we have the visual design, the business, and the prototype, when as in technology or the functional part brought together, you get the UX. And this is the combination of deliverables and structure that we wish to have for any time we are designing something. So if you just have prototype and performance, you get the business. Prototype and visual design is interface. Business and visual is interaction, but it is not the functionality, which remains to be seen that how we are going to cover it. There is a part about cognitive psychology, and if we want, we can have a full session on cognitive psychology in detail as well. Cognitive psychology, which are the also known as Gestalt's principle that we call, they cover the part where proximity, where the objects placed together, the eye perceives them as a group. So if things are in a particular corner, even though the shapes do not match, if they are um, placed together, we will imagine them to be of the same variety. The law of similarity: when objects look similar to one another, the eye perceives them as a group, even if they are not. So, just going opposite to the proximity part, we also have the similarity where the shapes play a major role rather than the proximity of it. Continuance, as in we can see the dot, the third one. It's not traveling from the center of the largest circle. The eye is compelled to move from one object through another. The continuous and the closure, these are the two things that makes up our understanding about the world. The brain breaks down the um, anything which is unknown to the most fundamental of definitions that we can recognize. um, so the anytime we have a question and we see something new, we would like to get help or seek a solution that is known to us. We do not want to live in the unknown. Every time there is an unknown, it causes anxiety. Even though there is no triangle there, just three pies, I think, which one piece missing. Um, but still, the thought is that there is a circle, and on which we have there are three circles, and there is a triangle on the top of it. Figure and ground, you can actually imagine that what is in the background and what is uh, put on top of it. And these are assumptions, these are not real, these are just two-dimensional graphics, but still give you the idea that what is actually working in that particular instance and what is not. So Gestalt's theory was it covers everything. So if you guys have to do a research, if you want to read about it, there are plentiful articles available on Gestalt's theory on the internet, and even you will get some better examples than what I gave. So you have heuristics and you have Gestalt's theory together on that part. So while we are at it, let me take you to another instance. That was January 13th, 2018. And it wasn't much long after that I created this. So on that day, there was a time when there were hot talks going on between North Korea and the United States. And North Korea was threatening with the nuclear tests, and US definitely didn't want them to do any more tests. And so the temperature was very high, and the anger and the statements were coming all over the place, and nobody was sure what's going to happen. It was quite flared up political atmosphere between the two nations. So that day, one morning, that day, that morning, this was a message that was received by people of Hawaii. And if you read it, it says ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. Now imagine you get this message on your phone by the government, and you're not sure what to do. And this is a message. It could be sent to all people in Mumbai that a ballistic missile threat inbound to Mumbai, seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. What are you going to do? The moment this message arrived, it actually caused a lot of panic, and the panic was so much. It was 7 minutes ago at 8:14, so it was 8:07 on Saturday, 13th January. People received this message, and immediately after they started going into um, shelter. And because of it was a Saturday, most people were asleep at that time. The children were not getting ready for school, and so that caused a lot of panic. But then, about 38 minutes later, there was another message which says there is no missile threat or danger to the state of Hawaii. Report, repeat, false alarm. False alarm. There is no threat. What do you mean by false alarm? Anytime if I'm going to shout that there is a missile coming to my city and I'm not going to be informed otherwise for the next 38 minutes, what am I going to do? Those 38 minutes, the life will be in danger. It will be stuck, and nobody would figure out what to do and where to go. But then everybody relaxed, kind of. They say missile alert in error, there is no threat. So before it was a false alarm, and now it was in error, and then emergency was a mistake, and we are working to get to the bottom of this so that in future it doesn't happen. And somebody said it was a wrong button that sent alert. Wrong button. How can be a wrong button be pressed in error for something like that? This was the UI. They released it. They said this is the UI where the um, we wanted to click something else and we clicked something else. And as you can see, there are the yellow are the drill links, the blue-ish is the weather alert, the red is nuclear, and the green are amber alerts. And it's clearly a case of somebody was just kept adding to the UI. All you need to do is just click one link and it sends that sort of a message. There is no confirmation, no real warning that what's going to happen. And we are not talking about some backward poor nation who can't afford a designer. This is United States of America, and they are actually sending alerts to your phone telling you that the nuclear warheads are coming. The homeland is in danger, and this is the UI that you will get. What are the problems there? If you do a heuristic, you will realize the problem. If you are going to do a system-wide Gestalt diversion, you will realize that there can be clear solutions to it. The only thing that needs to be applied here is common sense, nothing more, just common sense. People helped. Immediately after, websites were flooded with solution. Select a test alert or select a real world alert. Amber alert, this is what we are sending. This is the message which is going to go yes, send now, or no, go back, or not. Because the primary action on this is to send. Going back or canceling it is the secondary option. I'm not sure if I'm sending a real world alert or the test alert. Nothing is shown here. Even on the first screen itself, the test alert should be a priority because that is the option that you are going to use more often. Select a real world alert is the secondary option, should always be. When you are asking somebody to delete a file, the primary button should be cancel, and the secondary should be yes, confirm, delete the file as it happens. Or by default, focus area remains on cancel because you are preventing the error. But this is what happened here. But there was some better efforts also made. So some people actually tried to categorize them. that there are green for drills, yellow for alerts, red for warnings, and this actually makes sense. So if I'm clicking on the drill, I get the moment I click, I get this message. It says emergency alert drill, and I have to say do the sending part. Warning: this is an emergency notification. Then the red is really clear that ballistic missile threat inbound in Hawaii. Again, I would say the selected option should be cancel first, then the send emergency alert. But the beauty of this design is it is carrying the color code from the previous screen. So if the green is there, it I know that where I've clicked, which direction I'm headed. So it actually significantly reduces the risk of erroneous be sending any alert or any message that you don't want. But there are simple solutions to it as well, not necessarily having a heavy duty design. You can simply design it like this. There are alerts, test messages, false alarm notifications. You just group them on one screen. You don't need to have a full fledged bigger design. If you don't have budget, simple grouping could have sorted the issue out, and a confirmation message. So UX at core: interaction design, content strategy, visual design, functionality, data viz, information architecture, psychology, and usability. That is what makes a user go from where they stand. And with that, not going to take much of the ground here. I'll just say heuristic evaluation is what you will be reading for the rest of the week. And before coming to the next class, I hope that you guys have gone through the heuristics and saw the examples. So is with the cognitive psychology, because these are the basic founding principles for any design that you see. Go to NNGroup.org, sign up for their newsletter. If you can afford 3,500 rupees a year, medium subscriptions are um, encouraged. I'm not getting any share out of it, but just saying that it helps to read. The more you learn, the more you grow. And same thing is with Gestalt's theory. Gestalt's theory will be part of cognitive psychology, but you have to read. And these are the starting points. These are just common sense elements that will bring the best UX designer out of you. So, any questions I'm going to take now? We have got about 5 minutes in this session. Anyone? Okay. So from next week onwards, the sessions will follow a more structured pattern. I just wanted to get the interest in first. Next week, we are going to see the history of user experience design, where it comes from, where it is headed, and we will look into the examples of the future um, interfaces that we are going to design. For example, voice based interactions or VR based interactions. Um, we have done AR with in Galaxy. We had clients with whom we have done AR based projects. We have one upcoming project. I hope I'm not speaking too soon about it, but that is on VR, and designing for it would be a difficult or different experience than what we have had so far. We have done wearable experiences, we have done motion design, we have also looked into the IoT parts of interactions. So we will talk about what happened in the past about user experience design and what to look forward to. And those parts actually have to be covered before we look ahead into what holds in the future, or how to the process actually is ingested when we are designing any user interface or user experience. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I will stop this session and let you guys go. All good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you guys for joining, and see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.